tell us where you work.
I work in the Traverse City Post Office, more specifically the Barlow branch.
Your boss told you and your colleagues something that shocked you this morning. What was it?
We were issued a directive this morning to collect any ballots we find in mailboxes, collection boxes, just outgoing mail in general, separate them at the end of the day so that they could hand stamp them with the previous day's date. Today is November 4th, for clarification.
Who is your boss, and what is his title?
Jonathan would be a direct supervisor, yes. As of right now, he is the opening supervisor for the Barlow branch post office. So and this is anecdotal, carrier down in another office said they watched the postmaster doing it. If it were just a typical day, it would be clerks doing it up at the distribution center.
So 8 p.m. election day, November 3rd. The Court of Appeals ruled ballots have to be received by that time. And what were you told?
To separate them today so they could mark them with yesterday's date and send them through the express system to wherever they needed to go.
This appears to be an attempt to circumvent Michigan law and allow late votes. And you said there was a hamper where letter carriers were supposed to leave their ballots. Where are the ballots now?
They were putting them into express bags to go to the distribution center. In regards to a hamper, there was a standard hamper that all letter mail is supposed to go to, and they had a tub next to it that we were supposed to put any ballots collected today into.
Yes. What made you come forward?
That's sketchy. I don't like sketchy. It screams corruption. Also, knowing the post office's leanings politically, it didn't seem quite right.
What is your message to other postal workers who see things like this?
Report it. How are we supposed to have any integrity in this country if we are just going to let things slide based on a scaling issue?
Are you afraid of retaliation against you?
I've had whistleblower policies backfire on me in the past, so yes.
We'll have to reach out to Jonathan Clark for comment. Hey, is this Jonathan?
Yes.
Hey, I'm a reporter with Project Veritas, James O'Keefe here, and I have information that you guys have been stamping ballots with the previous date, November 3rd. He just hung up the phone on me. He just hung up the phone on me. The postal inspector contacted you today in Pennsylvania?
Yes.
What did they say to you?
They asked me the same questions you asked me yesterday about what I'd seen and what I'd heard, and we're asking if I had any more information or whatnot.
You witnessed your supervisor backdating a ballot to November 3rd?
I did not witness them backdating it. I witnessed them talking about backdating.
What did you hear them say?
They were talking about how the day before, which was the 4th, they had post-dated all but one of the ballots that were picked up as the 3rd, but they had one that they made a mistake and postmarked it the 4th.
You heard Robert Weisenbacher say this to Daryl, or Daryl say it? How did you hear it?
Robert was saying it to Daryl.
Robert was saying it to Daryl.
Yes.
They made a mistake on the ballot, and they should have backdated the November 4th ballot to November 3rd, correct?
Yes.
And you heard this, and since you did the interview with me in the shadows, what has happened to you at your employment? They were taking an action against you today?
Well, I'm not for sure, but they are bringing up stuff that happened like in the past.
So they brought up old allegations against you today that were already adjudicated, and they brought those up today?
Yes.
These inspectors have. What was the nature of your conversation with the post office officials that reached out to you today about our interview?
They said that I was. Well, because of certain factors, I was kind of implicated as the one who had came out. So they wanted to get my side of the story because they wanted to start an investigation into this. I think this comes from above them, and that's what I told the postal inspectors. I just think they were just doing what they're told. And, yeah.
We've just got done going through the 2 garbage bags that we obtained from Bucks County Board of Elections out of the dumpster. This is some of the ballot paraphernalia that we've discovered. You can see some signatures from some voters here. Looks like these ballots, they spoiled on some of these. We have some pieces here. A number of envelopes with signatures. A couple full ones too. There's some more down here.
Just to reiterate, this does appear like an official ballot, and the rules were not followed correctly, right?
That's what it looks like to me.
Fair enough.
What reason would someone have to not follow that process?
Ignorance, not knowing, not understanding, brand new law.
So there's a detailed process in place,
Yes,
and this clearly shows that the process was not handled.
yes, whoever was the judge of elections didn't do it correctly. The poll workers should not have thrown it in the garbage.
Is it legal to throw it in the garbage?
I do not know if it's legal to throw it in the garbage, but it should be sent back to us. And so we can hold on to it for, I believe it's 22 months.
Where does the spoiled ballot ultimately end up at the end of its life cycle?
It will be stored for 2 years and then it will be shredded.
So if we can just kind of start over with the spoiled ballots as to what happens with them once they become spoiled.
So they become spoiled and they're spoiled on them, and they're going into a spoiled bag that's kept in the warehouse after election day for a period of time. And I did talk to some, I believe it's 3 years that we have to hold on to them, and then nothing gets thrown out. I believe after the period they get shredded, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
My name is Brian McCaffrey. I'm a registered Democrat in the city of Philadelphia. I will let you know the corruption that is going on here. They will not allow us within 30 to 100 feet to supervise the ballots being counted. This is a coup against the President of the United States of America. This has nothing to do with Joe Biden or Donald Trump. This has to do with our democracy, and I will tell you, there is corruption at the highest level in the city of Philadelphia.
So Donald J. Trump just recently did a press release, and in this press release he said that the election is being stolen, they're finding a bunch of voter fraud in certain places in the country, and that there's been a lot of dishonesty as poll watchers are being banned everywhere. Now, we're currently in the middle of a hugely contested race. It is razor thin. In Georgia, Trump is leading by only a few thousand votes. If Georgia falls, it's over. But it's a lot bigger than that, folks. I believe this has been one of the most dishonest elections in U.S. history, and we may have the official vote count as soon as tomorrow, Friday, here on the Daily Mail. The election America and the world is watching grinds to a halt as Nevada and Arizona say they can't finish counting the last 250,000 votes that could decide it until tomorrow, as Trump vows to sue every state where Biden's won. Now, there's a lot of people who believe Arizona was called too early, that Arizona could still flip red, and we're on the edge. I gotta be honest, folks, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. I agree with the president. I think this election is being stolen, and I'm not the only one. As you could see earlier, that footage of a poll watcher who's a registered Democrat, he says that in Pennsylvania, there's immense corruption, and they're attempting to flip the state for Biden. John Brenshan says, a verified blue check mark. Pennsylvania Democratic officials are privately telling the Biden campaign officials that they believe the final margin of victory for Biden in Pennsylvania will be 100,000 to 200,000 votes when the counting is finally done. So let me get this straight. We have Democrats who are running the vote in Pennsylvania guaranteeing Biden that he's going to win by 100,000, even though Trump has been ahead all of these nights. You expect me to believe that garbage? I'm going to tell you folks what we're witnessing. A coup. The most corrupt election in U.S. history. These cheating, lying, dirty Democrats. We're seeing more and more proof. There's more and more videos. There's more and more evidence. There's more and more footage. In my opinion, this election is being interfered with, and there's a lot of foul play. The number just keeps changing. Philadelphia Secretary of State says they have 300,069 mail-in ballots to count. Where are they getting these from? And let me guess, they're all for Joe Biden. There's some massive cheating going on, folks. Chainlink Money says, Pennsylvania now has 18 billion residents. Adam in H-Town, Texas says, seems perfectly normal to have an election with 150% voter turnout. Yeah, none of this is honest. This is going to go to court. It has to go to court. There's no other option. What we're witnessing is a statistical impossibility. And I'm going to show you proof, folks. I want to show you the following chart. This is Wisconsin voter turnout. As you can see, it is statistically impossible. Reported Wisconsin voter turnout in 2020 is so high, it can only be viewed as a virtual statistical impossibility. It's 5.5 standard deviations from the mean. It's a black swan event. You'd never expect to see this in the world. It should be immediately investigated. So this is how much Wisconsin usually votes, with an average of 66.8% voter turnout. Instead, it was 89.3%. I believe this and other evidence proves that these elections were not secure, were interfered with, it's being stolen before our eyes. I believe we have evidence of this. Now, depending on who you ask, they're going to say it's stolen by the Democrats or it's stolen by Republicans. If Biden wins, Republicans will say that the election was stolen. If Trump wins, Democrats will say that the election was stolen. The only difference is, every time there's an accident, every time they find these ballots, and every time there's evidence of fraud and foul play, it always benefits the Democrats. Speaking of statistics, how is it that Biden has such high turnout? Here on Twitter, look at this, ex-Democrat Patriot. Trump has 88 million Twitter followers and got 69 million votes. Biden has 13 million Twitter followers and got 72 million votes. Isn't that interesting? You know, this is something I've pointed out in the past. How is it that how is Biden netting these numbers, even though he's got like no followers? 13 million versus 88 million. And you want me to believe that Biden got more votes than Trump? Are you kidding me? They go on, they run some numbers. They say that even if you say that half of the followers are bots, Biden's numbers are overcounted and way too high. And you can even see it here. Biden has won more votes than anyone in U.S. history. Even the fact checkers admit it. Obama did not get more votes in 2008 than Biden has in 2020. Truly, Sleepy Joe has more votes than anybody. Does anyone really believe that? Because I don't. Biden, though, is pretty confident here on the Daily Mail. Biden pleads with America to be patient and calm and wait for election results, and says he has no doubt he has beaten Trump. This is horrific. We are witnessing corruption on a level that is impossibly, it is horrifying. If Democrats are allowed to steal the election, and believe me, they want nothing more than to steal the election. If they are allowed to do this, say goodbye to America. Not only will we go into a recession, not only are a bunch of people going to lose their jobs, we're probably going to go back into lockdown, you're going to be forced to wear a mask for another year, you're going to lose your business, you're going to lose your families, you're going to lose a lot, okay? Biden is going to suck up to the Chinese, we're going to get into bad trade deals again, we're going to lose more jobs to China. It's going to be bad. America will suffer, and people will regret. They will regret the day they were gullible enough to believe the media that Orange Man bad and believe Joe Biden was actually going to help them. Your taxes will go up. Joe Biden will raise your taxes because he's going to get rid of Trump's tax cuts. Say goodbye. You voted for it. Now, we're also seeing a massive amount of big tech censoring people, trying to make sure that these elections are legitimate and secure. Here on The Verge, Facebook shuts down Stop the Steal group. It accumulated more than 300,000 members. So, there is a group called Stop the Steal. And the idea is that they will stop Democrats from stealing the election. They're going to watch them. They're going to check for corruption. They're going to find out. And what did Facebook do? It shut down this group. Big Tech is fighting for Joe Biden. Big Tech has been pushing the Democrats. Big Tech is biased, and Big Tech needs to be shut down. This is election interference. Now, I mean shut down, not literally, like, it'd be impossible to shut down Facebook. What I mean is shut down in terms of corruption, in terms of bias. These platforms need to be neutral. So why did they take down this group? Because it doesn't help them, because they don't like it, and because they want to crush anyone who dare support Trump. So Facebook claims that the reason they're taking it down is because, and I quote, "In line with the exceptional measures that we are taking during this period of heightened tension, we have removed group Stop the Steal, which was creating real-world events." A Facebook company spokesperson said in the statement, "The group was organized around the delegitimization of the election process, yada yada." So let me get this straight. Antifa can organize on Facebook. Leftists can organize on Facebook. They can call for real-world rioting, burning down cities, hurting people, and Facebook is fine with it. It's incredible. So Trump has announced that he's got a lot of lawsuits, and he believes that he will win if all legal votes are counted. No more dead people voting. No more fraud. We've seen it everywhere. In other areas, we've seen problems with voter counting, errors in the machines. Take a look at this. Joe Gum says, update. The Antrim County Clerk's Office in Michigan told me the election program it used, election source, had issues, and now the office is reviewing 16,000 total votes. The source I spoke with said she believes that 33 other counties use the program. So, in Michigan, there was a problem with the software they were using to count ballots, and they were counting double votes for Joe Biden. Not for Trump, for Joe Biden. 33 different counties use this program. In other words, Joe Biden's numbers in Michigan may be overinflated. And who knows who else used this software. See, this is the kind of thing that has to be caught. Joe Biden cannot win the election on a technicality. I strongly believe that if Democrats win, if they steal this election, so-called, if those claims are true, say goodbye. Say goodbye to a two-party system. Because if you let someone steal an election, that's all they're ever going to do. America's going to become like, it's going to be Russia. Democrats will never lose. Putin will be the Democratic Party. It's a close race. I really mean it when I say this, but I just want to be clear. Your future, our future, relies on how this unfolds. So help America, if Trump has this election stolen from him, you're not going to have an America. We're going to become a third world country. Honestly, I might just leave. I've got no interest in a place that can't even fight for itself. But it's not over yet. Trump may still win. It's probably going to go to court. And if it goes to the Supreme Court, Trump will win hands down. I saw a meme today, and it said, "Fight evil."
Oh my God!
Здравствуйте, Dad.
My son is a communist!
Hello and welcome back to No BS. Today we turn to talking about the United States presidential election, which just happened a few nights ago here in America. Unfortunately, though, we don't have the results yet. We might not even have them by the time you're watching this video, but it's possible we do too. But at the time of this recording, we're talking about what happened that night. This is a big, interesting story that I think tells a lot about this election cycle and the crazy stuff that's been happening in 2020. Essentially, what happened was the results did not come in fully on election night. That was Tuesday. People all voted. Typically, they get counted, and a lot of times you will know who won that night. Like last election, we knew Trump won by the end of the day. But this time, a lot of weird things started happening that made people question what's going on, made people think maybe the fix is in, maybe someone's trying to cheat. Now, there's no proof or direct evidence of that, but there's a lot of suspicious activity, a lot of things we could put together and see that there's definitely something weird going on. So let me just go ahead and preface that, but also give you guys more details as we move forward. We got a lot to talk about. So let's first check out this quick tweet. It's from Dean. I think he sums things up pretty well because there's these 4 big states that all had issues on election night. So Dean says the election is over and people are playing games. In Georgia, they said a pipe burst. In Pennsylvania, they said, you really expect me to count all these right now? And in Arizona, those 1 million votes aren't going to make a difference. Biden won. In Michigan, can't call it. There's some ballots blowing down 7 Mile right now. So these each have their own story. Let's start from the top. In Georgia, they were very close to calling it for Trump. Trump had many votes in a lead. And then all of a sudden there was this pipe that burst in the building where all the votes were. But the votes and the ballots didn't get hurt, but they caused them to pause the voting and have to wait until the next day. This is a series of events that happened in other places too. In fact, in Pennsylvania, they didn't even have an issue. They just decided to call it quits early. That's why he says this in the PA quote here. They just took the night off. They went to bed. People were defending that, which was super crazy. I think they were just trying to delay it. And the funny thing about these delays is, and what you'll see later, is the next day, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, while we were all sleeping, they found all these Biden votes. They found hundreds of thousands of votes in each of these battleground states that seemed to have Trump winning. Trump was winning in a lot of these places by the end of the night, late into the night on Tuesday. But we wake up and all of a sudden Biden has hundreds of thousands of votes. That's probably the most suspicious and sketchy part of what's going on here and why everyone should be keeping an eye on things, why we should be moving forward with investigations. I'm sure there's going to be some kind of court case. This could be all settled in court. This could be a very contested, very sketchy election, but that's because of Democratic shenanigans. These are states that Trump was winning. He had clear leads. All of a sudden they put these pauses on. Pipes are bursting. PA decides they want to go to sleep early. Arizona was called super early. This is a more West Coast state that was in a different time zone that should have ended later, but they were trying to call Arizona early. They were trying to get people to not vote. This is another game they play where they tell people a state's over so that people stop going to vote that day, and that kind of affects things. In Michigan, they're having this other story too where more votes are coming in. That's another Democrat-run state. That's in the Midwest. And all this put together is really the worst thing, that these things are getting delayed. I wish we could have known that night. I can be patient, but when you see hundreds of thousands of Biden votes pouring in just out of nowhere, just so random too, it's like you'd think at least some of the votes would be for Trump. Like you think even if they were cheating, they would be smart enough to throw a couple Trumps in there to not look as sketchy, but they're not. They're flagrant about it. They don't care. They're putting this right in our faces, and that's why we're dealing with this new story and all these issues too. So let's go to the next one. This is from Trump himself. He says they're fighting Biden votes all over the place in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. So bad for our country. So that is a very, very interesting insight. That's what we've been saying. All of a sudden they're finding all these Biden votes. It seems very sketchy, very out of place, very what's going on? Usually we have all this stuff counted. Why aren't they counting into the night? Why are these people that signed up to count taking the night off? And why is it in all these battleground states? It's only happening in the worst places that are trying to take it away from Trump. Aubrey Huff here has another tweet that has an interesting insight. It's saying the same thing with some more specifics. It says, how does over 130,000 votes for Biden Biden in Michigan come in overnight. And guess how many of those 130,000 were for Trump? Zero. At least don't make it so obvious. So that's what we were saying, that before. It's just crazy that not even one of those was for Trump. It's like they're not even trying. They're not even trying to show their bias, and they're stealing it. And it's coming from these states. Like here's Michigan on the New York Times results. You can see it's super close now, and this 100,000 easily put Biden past Trump. Like it was that close. Before that, Trump was winning pretty good. And Trump, it makes sense. I mean, there's a lot of Democrats in Michigan, but this is the same story on all these ones. Like Arizona was really close too, 100,000 difference, and Trump was winning. All of a sudden now Biden is winning. It's crazy. I don't know if there's an update on that. Looks like it's the same, but these things are still processing. It looks like there's still 14% of the vote to come in, but it just makes you think, like, look at this one. Look how close this one was. Trump was winning Georgia by like 1 million votes. Now he's only up by 87, and all of a sudden these ones come in right overnight. It's super sketch. And here Charlie Kirk has a follow-up on that. He says something weird is happening in Georgia. Trump is up 300,000 votes with 83% reporting, yet Democrats seem confident. Why? Poll watchers needed. So this is showing where their confidence might come from. They knew they were going to cheat. They knew they were going to pull these tricks. They were going to pull this vote out of their back. You know, it's just coming out of nowhere. They had all these votes ready to go. And again, like we said, we don't have the proof of the fake votes or how they did it, how they got votes from other people or something. We just have a sketchy looking series of events that doesn't line up with other elections, with reality. This isn't how things really come together in an actual election. Like you're not going to get 200,000 votes overnight. Voting ended at the end of the day before. Like your latest voting would be like 7, 8 o'clock maybe. I know there might be some extensions or some lines, and they have to take everyone that's in line. But the point is, this is not typical. This is not average. This is a very strange premise coming from another crazy election year. Get your 2020 bingo cards out here, because who would have thought that this kind of a thing would drag out, that these kinds of Democrats would cheat? Well, actually, there were a lot of people that saw this coming. I mean, Trump was one of the ones that said this. We talked about it here. The reason they wanted to have mail-in voting was to have a situation like this. Mail-in voting is advantageous for that reason, because the mail-in votes are actually counted last. They can mail in more votes. They don't have to verify identities. They could collect ballots. They call it ballot harvesting. That's something we've seen proof of too. Project Veritas had a whole video about it. They did those interviews, which we went over in another video here. And now we're seeing this stuff play out in some of the biggest battleground states out there. And it's really kind of scary. I mean, I'm not trying to worry too much. It's still early. I think it could still go either way at this point. At the point that you're watching this video, it might be a day or two later. They might have decided or still been counting. So we'll see how that goes in the future. Next, we got Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has Trump with quite a bit of a lead here. Pennsylvania gives him about 500,000 lead. And this is 17 minutes ago as of now. And this is another state. This is the state that didn't want to count their votes that night. It looks like there's 20% still coming in. So there is still a lot of votes to go there. That's a lot, actually. But still, I think Trump could win. I'm still confident and happy and hopeful. Hopefully this video doesn't prove me wrong in the future. But either way, I think we're seeing a lot of sketchy stuff coming out of this election, this extension, this vote-in gambit, this whole COVID influence, and the Democrats playing this game, finding votes out of nowhere. It's really, really, really not a good look. And it shows that there's a very, very likely chance that there's cheating. They're magically finding these votes, and it's not because of some kind of legitimate reason. Next, we have an article here saying Pennsylvania governor says partisan attack launched on state's election. Let's be clear. This is a partisan attack on Pennsylvania's elections, our votes, and democracy, Governor Tom Wolf said. Now, he is likely the big Democrat governor I've heard about. Let's double check. So yeah, he acts like other people are being partisan when it's really him being partisan. He's the one that is just super biased and ruining a lot of his states. Another thing to remember is Biden would ruin a lot of industry in Pennsylvania. Obviously, he would tax everyone more. He's also going to end fracking and these oil industries, which are pretty crucial to states like this. So I don't understand why anyone in Penn would be voting for him, especially these overnight secret votes that are going to help him win in the final hour. I mean, it's so obviously a fix. Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf, a Democrat, tweeted early Wednesday that a partisan attack had been launched on Pennsylvania's election. Wolf's tweet came after Trump tweeted that the election is being stolen from him. That was the tweet that Twitter actually censored. That's one of the moments that Twitter started to interfere. Now we're having governors and local states interfere. Wolf cautioned that the state still has to count more than 1 million ballots in the state. I promised Pennsylvanians we would count every vote, and that's what we're going to do, he said. Now, this is a another thing I noted. Normally they get them done that night, but they let them off early. And Pennsylvania is one of the states, they say they're not even going to be done until Friday, like multiple days later, which is just insane. I don't know why they're not prepared for this. I don't know why. It seems like they're intentionally dragging it out to me, though. Like anything they could do to drag it out longer might help the Democrats. Let's be clear, this is a partisan attack on Penn's elections, our votes, and democracy. Wolf tweeted, our counties are working tirelessly to process votes as quickly and as accurately as possible. Pennsylvania will have a fair election and we will count every vote. Now, this is a questionable response too, because they did take the night off very early on Tuesday. If they were trying to do it as quickly and accurately as possible, I think they would just work overnight, count them all the same day. Or maybe you could take off at some point. People need to shift and to have some sleep sessions, but you can work in shifts. You could have half your team take off and then the other half keep voting. But they decided to take this big early break, and it totally contradicts what the governor's saying here. In addition, he was allowed to tweet this. This is misinformation, if you ask me. This is a big kind of exaggeration and misrepresentation of how he's actually conducting this. But Twitter didn't block this. Twitter's not going to stop a Democrat from lying or pushing propaganda or making exaggerated claims. That's all fine and dandy. The only people they really watch are Trump and Republicans and his supporters and associates. It's like a very much a liberal coup in the media, in these popular websites. It's not just Twitter either. Twitter and Facebook are in coordination. Even Fox was getting in on this. People were really upset with Fox News, this website we're on right now, and they have a news channel, of course. They had very biased election coverage. Things are going down in the tanker. Things are looking really bad, and I just hope we can have a clear leader and get past this. I'm ready to move forward. I'm ready to talk about other stuff too, believe me, but until we can finally finish the election, we still have to go over these details. That about wraps things up. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Subscribe if you're new, hit the bell for notifications, and also hit the like button if you enjoyed this whole presentation. Until next time, have a great day.
Dr. Steve Pachenik, as we're in the middle of this, the election's over. We're now in the stealing process of the election. What are you seeing? What's going through your mind as you're witnessing this gigantic hoax?
Number one, it's not a hoax. What's happening now, and the reason I couldn't come on the Alex Jones show last night was I was not given the permission that I needed to in order to say what I'm about to say now. I do not work for the federal government. I'm not paid by them. Let me just say again what I said in 2016. There are honorable members of our intelligence, military, and civilian community in the government who understood exactly how corrupt Biden and the Democratic machinery was, and will be. This is really a sting operation, contrary to what everybody else said. Trump knew this was happening. Eric knew this was happening and warned the public. I knew this was happening. However, I could not say anything about it. What happened was we watermarked every ballot with what's called the QFS blockchain encryption code. In other words, we know pretty well where every ballot is, where it went, and who has it. So this is not a stolen election. On the contrary, we reversed the entire game of war along the lines of Sun Tzu, the art of war. And Trump was brilliant and still is brilliant at it. The reason he hasn't been seen, and Alex correctly said, oh, I haven't seen him in several days. Well, in the art of the war, you pull back, allow your enemy to make all the mistakes that they are making, manipulate the situation, expose them, and then come in for the final killing. And that's what's happening now. None of this was unexpected. All of this was expected. All of this is part of the sting operation we're running. And let me tell you that 48 hours ago, not only did we put markers on those ballots, but I can say now, with the permission of people in the intelligence community and elsewhere, that we have sent out thousands and thousands of National Guards to 12 different states, Washington, Delaware, Texas, Arizona, Alabama, and everywhere. So now you have to consider and rethink what this is really about. The genius of Trump is that he is able to pull back at any point and manipulate the opponent without the opponent ever realizing. He has said repeatedly, hashtag steal the vote. That's exactly what he has said for months. Then he made a very clear implication. He said, I will use common sense or my intelligence, i.e. both literal and figurative intelligence. And those of us in the intelligence community, be it who they are, again, what I said in 2016, when we exposed Hillary Clinton, we now exposed, and it was Trump who initiated this, Biden family. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Jill Biden, Jim Biden, Frank, the whole family was played right into a game where they were convicted, and you're seeing what's happening now. What was not announced was that we watermarked all the ballots with what I said, QFS blockchain, which is a very hard encryption code to break. And the second thing is we sent probably 20,000 or more National Guards 48 hours ago. None of it was reported, and I thank the press for not reporting it and others. So what in fact is happening is you're seeing a sophisticated sting operation that was initiated by Trump. I'm just a lowly peasant in this game, and honestly, I was informed that I could say something about it today, only last night. That's why I could not come on.
Well,
This is the reverse of what you guys have been thinking. It's not a civil war. We have not been surprised in any way. This has been a setup by Trump for a long, long time. In the same way that we knew about Hillary Clinton, I warned about the coup that we would do a counter coup, and this is our counter coup again against the Bidens. And that's exactly what we expected. The corruption in the mail, the corruption of USPS, corruption with the Democrats, everywhere and anywhere. There was no surprise here. And that's why we deployed National Guard soldiers to 12 different states. Nothing was said about it.
Steve, you've just broken certainly perhaps the biggest news since the election here on this show. I have to play this out logically in my head.
That's why I go on your show to basically, I keep.
Well, I love you, Steve. I'd kiss you on the lips right now if it wasn't digitally.
Yeah.
But
there's too many people watching us.
We're open like that. We're tolerant. But Steve, following your logic here, I mean, are arrests inevitably coming down the road?
Yeah. They're coming not just down the road, they're being implemented. What you saw Corey Wendowski and Pam Biondi saying when they were in Clay County and as well in Philadelphia, that was not just a threat. That was exactly what's going to happen. People will be arrested as of tonight, tomorrow, and it will go on for quite a while. And this was a total sting operation that I can say.
So explain
anybody else. I have the permission to say it. I do not deal with classified information, as you know. I do not work for our government, but because I'm loyal to the Republic, and I work with a lot of people who are loyal to this Republic, including the 16 intelligence services, the Secret Service, our civilian service. They've all been great, and they've kept it quiet. And I've been given the permission to say what I just said. I have nothing more to say, but this is not a surprise here. This is the biggest sting operation probably in our country that we've ever had.
Well, and it would be the genius of Trump, but Steve, I got to ask in the last minute 45 here to kind of hone in. So how is this watermark on the ballots? What is the significance of that as to, is it going to stop from fake ballots being counted, or how is that going to be used?
Well, we use it in any way that we need to use it in terms of counting, knowing which ones were fake, which ones were not. It's a very sophisticated code. So if you just throw them away, these are cyber communication implementations that we have the code for. We know exactly what was thrown away. We know exactly what was placed. We know exactly who has it, and we know exactly where it went. I can't go any further than that.
Wow, this is huge news that Steve Pieczenik is breaking on our show right now. For me to reiterate, I guess in my own words, President Trump and his administration and friendlies inside the White House in D.C. have launched a sting operation knowing this Democrat fraud was coming. And, you know, Steve, you said Trump's been talking about this for months. months. Actually, it's really been years. This is from President Trump on October 10th, 2012. He said, "It doesn't matter who you vote for. It matters who is counting the votes." End quote. Be careful of voter fraud. So he's obviously known about this forever. I mean, is this the genius of Trump playing out? I mean, long term?
Yeah. Trump is far more brilliant than people understood. I knew about Trump. I don't personally work for him, and I don't deal personally with him, but he knows that I've known him for well over 30 to 40 years when he built ice skating rinks for free. And I had my children go there, and he was very gracious to New York and to the United States.
All right, everyone. Right now, Twitter is acting disgracefully, running a massive censorship campaign, basically directed at anyone with a significant audience who's questioning the fact that the election stinks to high hell. Dude, most of the ballots being counted right now, they still smell of warm printer ink. And I'll tell you how we know this. You can look at the results in most of the states already. There's only a half a dozen left outstanding. Trump consistently outperformed in all of the competitive states that he ended up winning by a considerable margin. All of those states are already in. In all of the remaining states, it's basically on a knife's edge regardless of who's ahead. Why would it be so close there? Like, the polls were kind of okay in those states, but they were completely wrong in the other ones that already were tabulated. Bless you. I think that there's a little bit of a statistical anomaly there. Plenty of data points, by the way, to work with. I think that it's unhelpful, number one, if you want people to believe in election integrity, attempting to censor, number one, the President of the United States, but number two, a vast number of other people, pundits, independent commentators, odds makers in some cases, and so forth, I think is unhelpful, because it makes it look, what Twitter is at the end of the day is a multi-billion-dollar entity run by a multi-billionaire with a multinational team running it. When a group like that is impeding normal conversation with regards to the election, it automatically is going to reduce trust in the election, because it just looks slimy. It looks sleazy. Even if the election is completely ironclad, that's not the way to go about it. So from a pragmatic angle, number one, I'm not sure that it's helpful even for their bottom line, which is obviously that they want you to accept Biden being rigged onto the population, which is what is happening. I do declare that at this time, there is an attempt to rig the election. They also appear to be doing some sleazy shit in the Senate, and not the good sleazy kind like P. Martini. That's what it appears, unfortunately, to be happening at this time. Number two, it is election interference. Twitter is ultimately, at the end of the day, while a U.S.-based firm, ultimately a multinational corporation, operating in multiple nations, making money in multiple nations. Jack Dorsey, an international man of mystery, looks like a hermit at this point, wandering around in, I guess, Africa somewhere. He goes to Asia regularly. And he's massively rich. Where are all these liberals to complain about billionaires when it's Jack Dorsey doing something like this? They have such a big problem. Oh my God, Sheldon Adelson dumped $50 million into New York, or something like that. They had no problem with Bloomberg. They have no problem with Dorsey. They have no problem with, like, Sundar Pichai interfering in the same political process. Essentially, they're just warped lemmings, and they really think that there's a huge overall difference between generically Republican and Democratic individuals, so they don't really care if democracy dies in darkness, so to speak. They don't care if the election is rigged, just so long as Orange Man's gone. It's gotten to the point where it seems like the average liberal has Trump derangement syndrome so badly that they would rather wreck the republic for which we stand just to get rid of Donald Trump. They're so terrified at or angry at this man, this one particular individual who they think is Orange Hitler or a fascist or something, that they're literally willing to sit by and let billionaires influence the election on a level that's far more palpable than just they dump a lot of money into it. And Citizens United is bad enough. Having big money in the elections has cheapened them already. Now you're saying essentially that you don't even want the possibility of questioning the results of the election. Well, what have you been doing for the last 4 years? You've been screaming over and over that Donald Trump was an illegitimately elected president controlled by Vladimir Putin. Twitter, despite the fact that it's been objectively discredited, that particular line has never censored anyone for saying that. But you're very comfortable with them censoring the sitting president of the United States himself, including when he's posting just clips of him on Fox. MSNBC cut him off earlier when he was talking. What more need I say? Hypocrisy thy name is. Again, no problem with claims of election interference for 2016. Absolutely, no, that's totally true. See, the problem is you're not thinking clearly. You have Trump derangement syndrome. That's the term generally used for it by Trump fans. There's no other real term that you would understand to use it. You get cognitive dissonance. You've slipped too far into the two-party mentality, whereby you think that the other guys are automatically best. So if they rigged an election, it's true. But if you have fairly transparent shenanigans going on, like tales of 100,000 Biden ballots arriving in Detroit in the middle of the night swinging the Michigan election, like poll observers, including some that are registered Democrats, by the way, not even being allowed to do their job, when you've got this sort of thing going on, and you've got clear evidence that these things are happening, I would think that that would call into question the legitimacy of aspects of the election. Yeah, absolutely. Again, it's a statistical anomaly that Trump is managing to lose or barely ahead in all the states still counting, but even though they had mail-in ballots as well, he ran away with it in all of the other states that simply ended on November 3rd. It's amazing how that happened. Why was there never this surge in mail-in ballots in these other states? Don't you think that is a little bit fishy? Oh, it just happens to be in the states that are allowing the ballots to continue to be counted now, as opposed to the other states that already tabulated them. Yeah, Trump did fine on mail-in ballots there, but now it's like 95% Biden ballots that we're finding in some of these states. That is not reality. It's an impossible. In some cases, you have areas where there are more votes cast than there are registered voters. That also is an impossibility. If Trump does take this to court, if the Supreme Court ends up getting involved, Trump is suing in all of these states, there's a chance that he ends up getting declared the President of the United States up and over the objections of the states simply because of all the shenanigans going on. And we live in the smartphone age, by the way. We've got plenty of documentation of weird shit happening. Essentially, what I would argue is that all of these ballots currently being counted shouldn't be counted at all. The states, you'd think, with the technology we have today, don't you think that it's reasonable to expect that we should have a result on election night? Don't you think that if you want to have a mail-in ballot system, it's reasonable to expect citizens to mail those ballots in a timely fashion so that they get there by election day? How hard is it to put a fucking ballot in the mail? It's just like with voter ID. I don't support a universal voter ID. I'm not down with that because I don't want to have another fucking ID to carry around all the time. You should have to show an ID of some sort, though. You should have to show a driver's license or a state ID in order to get your ballot. Of course you should. Of course, it wouldn't if you got mail-in ballots. It's going to be kind of hard to do that. They say, well, we'll check the signatures. Dude, signatures from people are all over everything that they ever do. It would be so easy to harvest a few thousand of those and print up some fraudulent ballots. Or grab some fraudulent ballots. If you have a process in place to do that, by the way, this shenanigan that is going on at the moment means that from now on out, from here on in, I would say that all future elections technically are jeopardized. If the possibility exists in an election that's remotely close in more than a few states, to rig it in favor of one candidate or another, how is an independent-minded candidate ever supposed to get around the billionaires that control the whole system from the top to the bottom? How is it supposed... You'll never have another 2016, and I know that a lot of you liberals, if you hear me say that, oh, good. Trump, whether you like his proposals or not, basically gamed the system and managed to get in around the objections of a bunch of billionaires and war hawks. That's basically what happened. They spent 4 years subsequently partnering with the corporate media, run by multinational billionaires, to convince you that he was Hitler. Name a fascistic thing that he did. He was one of the most withdrawn, hands-off presidents in some ways that we've had in a very long time. Since the Jimmy Carter era. He's the first president since Jimmy Carter to not start or increase a significant conflict. You do realize that, correct? It took him weeks to respond to rioting, despite the fact that Obama acted within a few days. Why? Because he didn't want to be cast off as a dictator. Come on, dude. Not a fascist. I hope he wins his court cases. I have a feeling that the remaining states will tilt towards Biden. Just a gut feeling based on what I'm observing, based on the fact that, nobody knows their head from their ass at the moment. The election's fucked. And even at this point, I'm going to say this, even if Trump manages to win those states, you still got massive fraud going on. We got a much bigger problem than just the presidency. Don't you, if you can have tens of thousands of fraudulent ballots in some of these states, which you provably do in Michigan and Wisconsin, I do not believe that the results there are legitimate, that's a big problem. Don't you think, by the way, don't you think this could be a big problem if in the future some Republican president ends up getting in because of this bullshit? Don't you think that the very fact that billionaires are interfering in the election undermines people's faith in the election? Look, Silicon Valley's big tech firms enjoy a lot of brand loyalty, but they spent the last 4 years pissing a lot of that away. So if you want to peg your hopes of the American people believing in the electoral process and the republic that we exist in being generally fair, having Twitter censoring the sitting president of the United States is not the greatest way to go about it. That's about all. Peace out.
As you know, the Democrats are trying to steal the election while the mainstream media assures the American people that there's nothing out of the ordinary going on at all, and even mocking President Trump for voicing his concerns about the secrecy surrounding the ballot counting process. In fact, half of the news networks dropped President Trump's live press conference yesterday while he was raising those concerns. They can't allow the voters to actually know what's going on. MSNBC cut away after just 40 seconds of the president's press conference.
I've already decisively won many critical states, including massive victories in Florida, Iowa, Indiana, Ohio.
Okay, here we are again in the unusual position of not only interrupting the President of the United States, but correcting the President of the United States. And Ari Melber, don't go far.
Don't listen to what the president actually says. Listen to what we claim he says. But thankfully, not everyone is falling for this scam. So Republicans turned to Facebook to try to alert their friends and family about what was going on. And over 360,000 people joined the Stop the Steal Facebook group, and so Facebook banned it. ABC News also dropped President Trump's press conference just a few minutes in to continue lying to their audience.
There's a lot to unpack here and a lot to fact check in real time, and this is really important because the stakes are so high in this presidential election and people feel very strongly on both sides of this. So I want to bring in our chief White House correspondent, Jonathan Karl. And John, you and I were both listening to this. You heard the president say, I'd like to provide the American people with an update on what he said was our efforts to protect the integrity of our election. If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. Can you help us discern what he's talking about when he says if you count the illegal votes, they can steal it?
David, there is simply no evidence that has been presented in any of these states that there are illegal votes. He is talking about something, making an allegation with absolutely no evidence whatsoever. What he seems to be frustrated by is...
What he seems to be frustrated by are the illegal votes. Here's former acting director of national intelligence, Richard Grinnell.
Look, here in Nevada, I have to tell you, we have found and just referred to DOJ 3,062 people who were found really through publicly available information that journalists should be digging into. But we, the campaign, found 3,062 people who violated residency requirements in Nevada and voted when they don't live here and they didn't meet the residency requirements. And so what we are doing is referring these individuals to DOJ so that they can look at the details for possible criminal prosecution.
Meanwhile, in the key state of Pennsylvania, they continue to count the supposed ballots in secret and refused to allow any observers.
They have refused to let us have a meaningful view of the vote count. They have continued to count the votes. Because they have done nothing to help us, they are not letting every legal vote count. They are letting anything come in. They are not letting us look at anything at all. Nothing. So we have filed in federal court. We have just filed a motion in federal court for immediate injunctive relief to shut down the voting process until we can get a resolution where we can look at these ballots. There is a reason that they are suppressing the election results, the legal election results, because they will not let us look at the ballot. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you should care about this. They're trying to suppress our voices now, and they will not do it.
That's former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, who's now part of Trump's legal team, and after a judge demanded that they be allowed inside, they weren't allowed close enough to actually observe anything. Oh, by the way, the current Secretary of State of Pennsylvania, the person who's in charge of overseeing counting the ballots, is this woman who tweeted back in 2017, quote, using the title president before the word Trump really demeans the office of the presidency. No wonder Pennsylvania's not allowing the observers to monitor the vote count, which is supposed to be standard operating procedure in every election. And this is how CNN responded to President Trump voicing his concerns.
The president did not have any evidence presented at all. Nothing. No real, actual evidence of any kind of fraud. He talked about people putting up papers in windows. He talked about things that he'd seen on the internet. That is the president of the United States. That is the most powerful person in the world. And we see him like an obese turtle on his back, flailing in the hot sun, realizing his time is over.
The president also pointed out that the supposed vote counters in Detroit covered up the windows in order to prevent people from seeing what they were doing. And this is how others at CNN reacted to that.
Let's just be really blunt about this. Why is he talking about Detroit? Why is he talking about Philadelphia? Yeah. It's not subtle. It's race. It's race. It's Donald Trump's go-to play. And it's disgusting. So I just want to say that.
I appreciate you teeing it up. It's unbelievable that he can say these cities are known for corruption, et cetera, et cetera. Why are you singling out these two black cities? Why are you denying the victory that these people have fought for? I'm upset about it because African Americans have fought so hard.
Yes, it's racism. Even though President Trump got the largest number of non-white voters out of any Republican in the last 70 years.
Jim?
Yes, Anderson, even though legally Al Gore challenged the outcome of the 2000 election and didn't end up conceding until mid-December, President Trump should have given up on election night and just believed what we in the media were reporting.
What a sad night for the United States of America to hear their president say that, to falsely accuse people of trying to steal the election, to try to attack democracy that way with this feast of falsehoods. Lie after lie after lie about the election being stolen. No evidence for what he's saying, just smears about the integrity. It's not true, it's ugly, it's frankly pathetic.
What's pathetic is working for CNN and calling yourself a journalist, which is why pathetic is written all over your face. And thankfully there are millions of us who see through this charade and are trying to stop the steal.
I think the Democrats are used to this from a Republican Party that hasn't had a backbone. You're not going to see that this time around. That party is gone, and anyone that doesn't fight like that should go with it.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from Midwesty. I hope you're having a okay Thursday. You know, the reality is starting to set in that we're not going to have any satisfaction on this election for another week, and we've got to keep going to work. We've got to cover other things. We've got to stay on top of our lives. So, well, I guess for today, we'll continue to cover the election, as if we get any meaningful data from Arizona that it looks like in any way that Trump might lead, it could be a spicy finish. Now, if mystery votes show up, Joe Biden wins Arizona, it's over. So who knows at this point? But what I do know are, good thing, you know, Halloween just happened, because the dead are apparently rising from the grave to vote for Joe Biden via the mail. Before I get into the story, just a quick reminder, I'm giving away a Microsoft Xbox Series X. I'm only going to remind people today. It's the last time I'm going to remind people, if you want a chance to win, there's a link in the pinned comment below to the video, how to win. Basically, all you have to do is be subscribed to the quartering channel and enter. So make sure you do that. Help support. I cover everything that is probably interesting to you here on that channel too. That's just not straight politics. This channel is straight politics. Now, this, according to Summit.news, and there's a whole bunch of stuff like this, Trump supporters question why absentee ballots were filed for people up to 120 years old. Trump supporters are questioning, on election night, President Trump was ahead in Michigan, but his lead was wiped out after a huge number of late mail-in ballots went for Biden. In addition to numerous other claims of fraud, attention is now being focused on people who almost certainly are dead had ballots filed in their name. Trump supporter Austin Fletcher posted screenshots from information from a Michigan voter database. Now, the question is, what I'm only interested in right now is we can't get caught up in the onesie-twosies. I know they add up. But what I'm really interested in is there 10,000 of these? 15,000 of these? If there's 5, it doesn't really matter. I mean, it matters, but it's not helping Trump, you know? He needs this 100,000 mystery votes to be fake, or a transposed decimal or something like that. And also understand this. A lot of theories around this, I'm not saying that there isn't fraud. I'm just saying we need time to prove it. But a lot of this feeling is that in-person voting showed up first in the polls, which put Trump ahead in so many states. And then as they went to mail-in ballots, which we know are probably 80 to 90% Democrats, things changed. So it felt like a victory was being taken away from us. If they had counted mail-in ballots first, it would have looked like during the day that Trump was coming back and not losing his lead. So I think it's important to just keep some perspective and understand that that's why some of the numbers look the way that they do. Turns out 118-year-old William Bradley voted via absentee ballot in Wayne County, Michigan. William Bradley died in 1984. How long has this been going on? Another person named June Aiken voted in Jackson County, Michigan. She was born in the year 1900, making her 120 years old. Another woman named Donna Bridges, born in 1901, also apparently voted via absentee ballot in Mason County, Michigan, at 119 years old. Some local law enforcement needs to visit these addresses and find out what's going on, commented California committee woman. Yeah, okay. So let's try to look at some possibilities, right? Let's look at some possibilities as to why this is the case. Is it possible? Is it possible that a father and son had the same name? Yes, it is. But the birth dates wouldn't match. Is it possible that some date, like somebody literally just filled out a ballot in somebody else's name? Yep, of course that's possible too. I just don't know. There's so much shenanigans. We see here, Georgia Secretary of State just said live on Channel 2 that there are now under 25,000 ballots left to be counted and should be done by noon today. As of 6:20, 18,540 votes separate Trump. Update, the Secretary says there's actually 50 to 60 uncounted ballots. Yeah, because 30,000 Biden votes just rolled in. You'd wait. You just wait. Nothing to see here. It's the mail-in stuff. Normally it is ripe for fraud too. But the reason it's extra important this year that we call it out and we look at it is because such a high percentage of the total vote was done that way. And we need to take the time to look through these and discredit every ballot that's incorrect. We need to look into these pollsters. We saw people in Michigan, that weren't counting votes the correct way and bipartisan people at tables. There's a whole slew of shenanigans going on, and this isn't going to be over anytime soon. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Falar sobre as eleições americanas, queria tocar aqui em 2 ou 3 pontos importantes para as pessoas estarem atentas e fazer recordar algumas cabeças sobre alguns assuntos. Há uma coisa bastante interessante, é que as pessoas têm perguntado sobre o lápis azul, e assim, eu e o Gonçalo vamos tentar fazer lápis azul sobre este tema, aliás, essencialmente sobre este tema, o próximo lápis azul, as eleições americanas, mas nós estamos também à espera dos resultados, que é muito melhor para fazer qualquer live, e vamos tentar fazê-la logo após esses resultados e logo após sabermos, efetivamente, quem venceu as eleições. Portanto, fiquem atentos tanto às minhas redes sociais, como ao meu canal do YouTube, ou ao canal do YouTube do Gonçalo, que em breve teremos aí lápis azul. Mas, partindo logo para o assunto de forma direta, nós estamos aqui com 2 problemas, que é o problema da comunicação social, que tem mentido, tem manipulado e tem escondido factos, tanto contra o Trump como favorecendo, usando o silêncio para favorecer o próprio Biden. Mas nestes últimos dias, 2 coisas incomodativas aconteceram que mostra de todo que a comunicação social ela não está a ser minimamente coerente. Eu acho que as pessoas têm que começar a perceber isto, que até podem não gostar do Trump, até podem não ter muita simpatia com o Trump ou com o estilo dele, mas é essencial que o Trump vença por vários motivos que estão a acontecer no mundo. Mas, acima de tudo, questionar por que raio, ao fim de 4 anos, a comunicação social nunca favoreceu ou fez uma notícia positiva sobre Trump. Era possível um político tão mau, um político tão desonesto ou tão incompetente exercer durante 4 anos e estar numa competição, mesmo lá em cima, com o próximo candidato nas eleições seguintes? Não era possível. Não era possível. Qualquer pessoa já tinha caído do poder. Outra coisa que é bastante grave é que nos últimos dias nós não tivemos nenhum artigo, nenhuma reportagem, nada, zero da comunicação social sobre os vazamentos do computador portátil de Biden. Tem circulado imensa informação, é verdade que parte dela pode ser falsa, mas informações que estão a ser esmiuçadas de toda a forma e que trazem um plano de pistas que o próprio Biden já tinha deixado lá atrás, quando foi vice-presidente. Um plano que engloba realmente uma nova ordem mundial em ação. Isso está a ser falado por outros líderes. O Lula já falou isso ao vivo. Ok, o Lula está a ficar louco. Mas Lula também sempre negou a existência do Foro de São Paulo e ele depois veio a ser confirmado que realmente existia. Por quem? Pelo próprio ditador da Venezuela. Então, nós assistimos a uma série de inventos que as pessoas não acreditam neles, são rotulados como teorias da conspiração, ficam em segundo plano porque são totalmente ridicularizados pela comunicação social, pela massa esquerdista que está nas televisões e no jornalismo, e as pessoas apagam aquilo da sua mente. A única coisa que fica dentro da mente das pessoas é que não podem gostar de determinado político e podem gostar de determinado político. Portanto, não podem gostar de Trump, podem gostar de Biden. É assim que está a funcionar a forma manipuladora do nosso jornalismo. Mas em relação ainda aos vazamentos do portátil de Biden, o assunto foi completamente ignorado. Foi como os e-mails da Clinton. Foi completamente ignorado o assunto. Completamente ignorado na altura. E houve sondagens que deram 80% ou 90% de vitória seguríssima à Clinton. Na altura. E agora estamos a ver a mesma coisa a repetir-se. E as pessoas mesmo assim acreditam que aquilo que vem na comunicação social é o que está a acontecer realmente na América. Mas eu também queria alertar aqui algumas pessoas e avivar a memória das pessoas para alguns atos de desinformação e de fake news que a comunicação social propagou ao longo do mandato de Trump, ao longo dos 4 anos de Trump. E eu até enumerei aqui algumas questões, tenho aqui vou ler, porque é mais fácil. E vamos tentar aqui realizar um pensamento e fazer aqui umas contas de cabeça sobre o número de vezes que a comunicação social acusou Trump de provocar uma guerra mundial e de acima de tudo, ameaçar a paz global do planeta. Ok? Primeiro episódio. É quando do conflito com o Irão, entre Trump, entre os Estados Unidos e o Irão. Meu Deus, é guerra. É agora. Trump atacou. O Irão vai retaliar. Aconteceu alguma coisa, gente? Não aconteceu nada. Segundo ponto. É quando da morte daquele terrorista, do Soleimani, o que é que aconteceu na altura? É agora que o planeta vai entrar em guerra, em colapso total com os Estados Unidos. O doido do Trump provocou o maior acontecimento de todos os tempos de guerrilha, etc. Aconteceu alguma coisa? Nada. É quando dos conflitos com a Coreia do Norte, entre o Trump e a Coreia do Norte. Lembram-se? Que Trump ameaçou forte e feio o Kim Jong-un. E o que é que aconteceu? Nada. Pelo contrário, Trump foi um mediador entre a paz, digamos assim, ou a reconciliação entre a Coreia do Norte e a Coreia do Sul. Trump foi o presidente que visitou a Coreia do Norte ao fim de tantas décadas. A quando dos conflitos com a China sobre o território de Taiwan, a China quer meter a mão a Taiwan à força toda. Os Estados Unidos meteram-se, Trump meteu-se para assegurar a independência de Taiwan e a posição estratégica dos Estados Unidos em relação ao território que Taiwan apoia. Aconteceu alguma coisa? O ditador chinês disse alguma coisa? Atacou os Estados Unidos? Ameaçou? Nada. Nada. Vamos continuar aqui. A posição pró-Israel de Trump foi criticada de todas as formas e feitios na comunicação social, porque iria provocar um desequilíbrio nas retaliações e naquela tensão no Médio Oriente. Aconteceu alguma coisa? Não aconteceu nada. Pelo contrário. Trump foi o mediador do entendimento diplomático entre estes países todos. Reparem. Entre Israel, com o Sudão, o Egito, os Emirados Árabes Unidos, Bahrein e a Jordânia. Trump conseguiu criar todo este escudo à volta de Israel, conseguiu criar um ambiente de entendimento diplomático e de paz entre estes países todos. Portanto, nós vivemos aqui um verdadeiro assassinato de reputação e de inversão de valores que a comunicação social está a fazer sobre Donald Trump. E não é só sobre Trump. Isto não é só sobre Trump. E para terminar o vídeo, o essencial aqui é que isto não é Trump. Não é pelo Trump. Não é pelas políticas de Trump ou pela forma de Trump fazer política. Isto é pelo planeta. Isto é pelo planeta, pela paz no planeta. Os Estados Unidos crescendo, toda a economia cresce no mundo, todo o mundo consegue fazer dinheiro. A China enfiou-nos este vírus maldito, desgraçado, está a acabar com a nossa sociedade, está a acabar com a Europa. Os Estados Unidos fizeram frente à China, colocaram a China de joelhos e o que é que aconteceu? Os Estados Unidos continuam a crescer e são sempre massacrados em cima de massacre. Podem criticar várias posições e medidas e comentários que o Trump diz, porque o Trump não é perfeito, está muito longe disso, mas Trump, acima de tudo, está a lutar contra a nova ordem mundial, contra o avanço do comunismo no planeta. Nós não podemos continuar nas mãos dos socialistas a ser massacrados por impostos atrás de impostos. Usam sexualidade das pessoas, usam a cor da pele das pessoas, querem provocar uma cultura multicultural que está a ser um desastre autêntico. São ataques e ataques e ataques de terrorismo islâmico na França. A matar pessoas atrás de pessoas de forma bárbara. E ninguém vê isto, ninguém comenta isto. São incapazes até de, na comunicação social, dizer o nome com as letras todas. É terrorismo islâmico. É assim que o mundo está. Foram 15 milhões que o nosso governo deu à comunicação social. Porquê? Porquê que o jornalismo tem que ser pago? Quando, nesta altura, por causa do Covid-19, o jornalismo é o que mais está a ganhar no meio disto tudo. E continuamos a ver portugueses que não têm dinheiro para pagar a renda, que ficaram sem emprego, que têm dificuldades diariamente, quase não têm uma refeição quente para comer, têm que recorrer a cantinas sociais, têm que recorrer à Cruz Vermelha, têm que recorrer ao vizinho, ao irmão, ao primo, para tentar sobreviver. Isto não tem a ver só com política, gente. E para todos aqueles que já perceberam o que está aqui a acontecer, se Trump vencer, é a prova que Deus ainda não nos abandonou. Fica aqui um recado para todos os cristãos católicos. E para aqueles que não são cristãos e que não são católicos, não está na altura de termos estes conflitos. Se são pró-Trump, se percebem o que está a acontecer com o movimento comunista no planeta, temos de estar todos unidos neste momento e esperar os melhores resultados, não só para os Estados Unidos, não só para o Trump, mas acima de tudo para o planeta. Um abraço a todos. Até à próxima. Fiquem atentos, porque em breve, lápis azul sobre este tema. Até à próxima.
That we do. That we do. Now I'm going to start over out of your corner. Can you hear me? So I'm good. Hustling again. You can start over.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
All right, everyone, we have a new Project Veritas release. This is something that certainly won't be talked about at the presidential debates in 2 days. I can't imagine Chris Wallace considering this relevant and bringing it up, but there is now evidence of systemic fraud going on in the Minnesota election for the general, specifically in Ilhan Omar's area. Who would have thought that that could ever be a possibility? Now, keep in mind, and I've repeated this many times, in past elections, typically the general has actually been fair, because if you've got two people that are both controlled by the same corporate oligarchs, you don't really care which one wins. It's a fake vote. Doesn't matter if Romney or Obama's president. They stand for the same fucking shit. John McCain against Obama, Kerry and Bush and Gore and so forth. It doesn't matter. For the first time in a long time, certainly since first-term Reagan, maybe not second-term Reagan, we have someone in the Oval Office who's reasonably independent, and who obviously marches to the beat of a different drum. Part of this is nothing more than political paradigm shifting over. It happened with Reagan. It happened prior, certainly at the end of the World War II era. Socialism gets swept aside. You get Eisenhower, you get JFK, and so forth. You've had multiple political paradigms throughout the nation's history. These things can happen quickly, or they can drag on for almost an entire generation. This one remains to be seen, but we're now in the Trump paradigm. So it's not surprising that this time you actually have significant fraud in the general election. Minnesota was close in 2016. According to polling, it will be closer this time. It's anyone's guess which way the state goes. It could be a pickup for Trump, because of course he lost it by having like a couple tens of thousands of votes before. It could remain blue. Biden could win it, with or without any fraud, by the way, we're not sure. But now we have, link in the description, and this is a story about it, and a second link actually to Veritas BitChute page. I would share out the YouTube page, but, you know, they could get bullseyed off YouTube at any time because Google has clearly decided to interfere in the U.S. election. So use BitChute. By the way, if you're on a smartphone, use BitSlide, the client for that. It has improved, according to everyone I've spoken with who's actually used it. It is now a functional app to use BitChute. But you've got evidence now, video evidence, of individuals that are working for the Democratic Party, hand in hand, I guess, with Ilhan Omar in part, harvesting ballots. Including paying people for ballots. This is alleged by the person actually working to pick up these ballots. Now, under Minnesota law, a person's not supposed to be the designated agent for more than 3 individuals with regards to these ballots, but this dude's bragging about having 300 ballots in his trunk. That's significant. And then claiming that that's part of a network of hundreds of individuals doing this. If that is indeed the case, you could flip 50, 60,000 votes maybe. That's enough to flip the general election easily, and then some. That's enough so that you could probably swing the election 5 points with that much harvesting. Simply because Minnesota, well, it's a fairly significant state. It's not New York. It's not California. Now, when we see evidence of voter fraud, suppression, and so forth, if it's like in a California or Wyoming or something, it's still illegal and it's still worrisome. But it's not quite so relevant because those states aren't going to flip. But when we see it in Minnesota, and also we've seen it in Pennsylvania, where they found hundreds of Trump ballots in a dumpster, when you have voter fraud in a state that's possibly going to be within the margin of error in the final results, when it's basically a 50-50 shot for both candidates, that could flip a state. And certainly in the case of these states, there are enough electoral votes in them that in a close election, which this might very well be, it's probably not going to be a total washout. In a close election, it could flip the election. That is worrisome. That's why, by the way, Amy Coney Barrett needs to be on SCOTUS as of Election Day, so that any shenanigans can be countered. That's transcendentally important at this point, I think, for the GOP to accomplish. I think it would be hazardous to them if they waited until before inauguration, but after the election, even more hazardous if they're crazy enough to wait until after that. And procedures could go against them. The Senate could flip blue. It could cause a constitutional crisis. But Project Veritas has done a really great job. And it's funny because O'Keefe himself, he keeps getting defamed by people. Like, remember when he couldn't buy a gun for his own protection because the FBI claimed he was a felon or something? And of course he called him up, I guess, or sent in mail. He's like, hey, I've never been found guilty of a felony. I'm eligible to buy a firearm. And then they had to take him off the list. This has happened with no-flyer lists before as well. For a while, people couldn't even appeal the decision because there was no way to actually list a grievance against them. And so you could be prevented from traveling or defending yourself in blatant violation of the Second and Fourth Amendments, especially, possibly the First and arguably the 10th as well, without any due process, violating several other amendments in the process. It was the most unconstitutional thing we've had recently. I would say red flag laws definitely violate the Constitution as well, but Trump unfortunately disagrees. I think he's crazy for doing so, about the only anti-gun position he has, thankfully. Bump stocks don't really count. Technically, in a roundabout way, it does violate the NFA, although that should itself be gone as well. Veritas has done a really great job. In the last election, they had several fairly important releases, showing systemic corruption, collusion between the legacy media and the Hillary camp, various things that were going on that shouldn't, organization between PACs and the campaign through middlemen. That was proven. And in fact, I think that was it Creamer there? The Democrats canned him the next day. Without any further ado, if he did nothing wrong, why did they can him in his organization? They would just switch to a different middleman. Of course, they're not going to stop communicating with super PACs in violation of federal law. But this breaks the law. Absolutely. You're not supposed to be ballot harvesting. And people have warned about this, that in some of these states, because there's a reason to harvest ballots, it will happen. And in some of these states and regions, you have AGs that aren't going to prosecute or even look into it because they're controlled by the same political movements. You've got police, you've got machine politics in many U.S. cities and in some U.S. states at this point. You have machine politics. It's not really a representative system of government at this point because it's so corrupt. From the top down, it's systemically corrupt. So definitely take a look. Again, 2 links in the description. The first is a news story, links to the video. The second is their BitChute page. Again, if you're using BitChute, you need to get BitSlide unless you're a Luddite like me that's connecting by a PC or laptop. If you're connecting on your phone, you're going to want BitSlide because apparently BitChute itself doesn't work very well with smartphones. You need an app for that. Well, there is one now. That's about all. Peace out.
Hello and welcome back to No BS. Today we turn to talking about the United States election season and our voting process, which is about to take place in November, just about a month from now. That's right, we're getting ready to vote here in America, and there's been a lot going on specifically regarding the voting process. Lots of Democrats have first pushed for mail-in voting because they think that'll help them and give them a way to have an advantage here for probably nefarious reason, which is going to be confirmed by some information we're about to go over. What we're going over today is an investigative report from James O'Keefe. He works at Project Veritas, and they've exposed some pretty bad scandals like this in the past. They've had undercover recordings and interviews with staffers from certain bad companies. Like, for example, one time they were outing CNN and Facebook for being biased and, favoring certain political parties over another. Stuff like that has come out through the Project Veritas news company, and today is no different. Today is a pretty groundbreaking story about one certain congresswoman from Minnesota named Ilhan Omar, who has likely been buying votes. That's right. She's been connected to a harvesting scheme where they have caught and video evidence of people paying money to buy some of these votes. These vote by mail things are going around right now. People are pushing for that. The Democrats want more ballots to be mailed out. That way they can buy them, put the Biden name on them, and get more votes for their party. It's not just Biden running for election either. There's a lot of Democrats running for re-election. There's a lot of things being voted on this November. So we're going to talk more about this Ilhan Omar harvesting story. We're going to get to the videos and the articles real soon. But first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. Today, I'm real excited to offer you guys this 2020 Battle for the White House historic and limited time only chess set. That's right, we're talking about chess today, and this set is awesome. It's based on this U.S. election. It's got the king figures being Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and other figures are represented too. You've got Kamala Harris, you've got Chief Justice John Roberts, Mike Pence, George W. Bush, Democrats, Republicans. It's a very topical, very funny, very cute chess set that can be yours today. If you check out our link below today's video, you could get this special offer for a very good deal too. You get free shipping, and you can also upgrade to a double offer if you're interested in an extra set for a friend or family member, or maybe for a gift. Christmas is coming up not too far from now, but I think it's a great offer and you guys should consider it. If you're interested, click the link below this video. Enjoy the 2020 chess set, and now let's get back to the show. Great, now that that's out of the way, let's turn to Twitter. James O'Keefe is tweeting here. His video has 3.4 million views. That's pretty darn impressive, and it's deserved because he's basically exposed Ilhan Omar, which is really bad because Omar has had lots of illegal things come up about her. She's been alleged to have married her brother to get him immigrated, like committed immigration fraud. She's embezzled money through her new husband and lover, who she was cheating and having an affair with, and now her campaign is giving him hundreds of thousands of dollars, which indirectly go to her and her family too. So there's been a lot of illegal things in Ilhan's past, and this is another one of them. This is another sign. I can't believe she's still in office. It's pretty crazy, but we're going to see how bad this gets. The tweet says, Omar connected Harvester C in exchanging $200 for general election ballot. We don't care, illegal. We are taking the money and we'll vote for you. Ilhan is one who came up with all this. So that's some quotes from the video. Now let's go ahead and take a look and see what it says.
The tape you're about to see shows a man buying a registration form for an absentee ballot from a voter, giving him, quote, pocket money, unquote, of $200 and expecting to collect his ballot when the voter receives it.
Okay, so they're talking about the person is caught on tape, cash for the ballot. He's giving them instructions on what to fill out. I think essentially they're going to have them fill out these ballots and then not vote, just like fill out your name and your number and your whatever, your information, your address, and then they'll buy the ballot and fill in the votes that they want, like Biden and whoever else. There could be votes in certain areas depending on where they are for representatives and local elections and stuff like that. And apparently somehow this is connected to Ilhan Omar. Ilhan Omar has had shady stuff in her past before. We've seen it. We've covered it. It's a really bad sign. And it comes from the left, the corrupt left. I mean, they've been proven to be these sort of liars and fraudsters before. People suspected this might be happening with them recommending this mail by voting. We've already uncovered chances of it getting tampered with before. We had a story last week where we caught people in Pennsylvania throwing out votes. All these Trump votes got thrown out. They were actually military votes. So that's another bad sign. And now we have this other bad sign coming from this video. So they appear to be speaking some other language. I can't really tell what it is, but they have a translator here. They have the Veritas cut in here. You saw the guy reporting that was James O'Keefe. And yeah, they're calling it pocket money, but they're essentially giving cash for ballots. This is what they sometimes call ballot harvesting. That's what this says here. That's just like harvesting ballots, like you're growing plants. They call it that because you're kind of like drawing them in. You got to find a way to get the ballots and, you know, communicate with people and, you know, set up this whole intricate system that is highly illegal. It's definitely fraud and election tampering, and it's not a good look for the left, especially going into this a month ahead of this big controversial election.
But that's illegal. Why? We don't get illegal. How much are we?
Our investigation has exposed a pay-to-vote scheme in Minnesota. It looks like Congresswoman Ilhan Omar may be connected. So it's still pending. We're still getting details and figuring it out. But again, it's not surprising. This is a foreign immigrant from a shady place coming here, talking about openly destroying America. She wants to dismantle all our systems, give everyone free stuff. Like, she's not a good actor. You know, we've seen how she acts in the public. You know, not all this stuff is illegal. Some of it's borderline, you know, treasonous. You want to destroy the country that you fled to. Like, she fled Africa Africa, came to America because obviously it's better. She had a good home in Minnesota, set up her family there and stuff. And now she wants to destroy this country. She wants to dismantle our systems. She said this openly. And someone that thinks like that, it just makes sense that they're not going to respect the voting process. Like, why would she respect it if she doesn't respect the country? She doesn't respect what's going on here. Then, of course, she's going to be more inclined to cheat, to break the law, to not respect the law. She's also anti-law enforcement. She goes against the cops every day of the week. I mean, all this stuff leads to someone who would commit these crimes, who would cheat, who would do whatever it takes. And that's why it's not a big leap. And then now we have more evidence to connect her to it.
She's the one who came up with all this.
So she did it. She started this whole thing with the pay to vote.
Yeah.
So the people that work for Ilhan are actually counting the ballots, counting the vote.
And they become a manager in the prison too.
So there's witnesses, a former staffer, another guy talking in an interview, pointing out Ilhan, saying that she's counting them, she's paying for them. I mean, this is pretty good. This is pretty damning. I mean, it would at least warrant further investigation. Like we said, we got to tiptoe a little bit. We know we're not confirmed here. We're not actually, there's no trial or charges yet, as far as I know, but I certainly would hope there's something being investigated. I think they already announced that. We'll see if it goes any further. And then right here, it says, if you don't have an absentee ballot, the ballot harvesters vote for you in the polling booths under the guise of being translators. So they're using the translator gimmick. This is another way they could steal votes. Translators are typically allowed in official capacity. Like if you can't read a certain language, you can have a translator help you vote. But this is them masquerading as that, as a way to just take the person's identity and vote for who they want with that identity.
They walk with you to the booth, and then they vote. Oh, vote this guy, vote this guy, vote this guy. Vote even if you speak English.
So this looks like they're paying someone close to Al-Qaeda. This is another thing worth bringing up because we've seen the kind of insensitiveness of Ilhan regarding these foreign terrorists who have attacked America, killed many thousands of us in our homeland with attacks like, the terrible one that happened in New York City back in 2001. We've also warred with them in the Middle East for decades. But the point that I want to bring up here is there was one interview clip, we've gone over it before in the past, where basically Ilhan Omar brushes over 9/11. She says, oh, there were some people that did something, trying to just like not talk it down, not say, oh, this was a terrible tragedy, thousands of people died, it was a terrorist attack, it was religiously fueled, all this other bad stuff. She just plays it down as some people doing something. So it just shows that she's not willing to call out her fellow Muslims, especially these terrorist ones who are terrorizing America, killing people here and there. And if she's willing to do that, she's willing to look the other way. I mean, it definitely goes to show she might pay them off or, work with them or do something with them. You never know with someone like that. Sources say Ilhan Omar's biggest financier is behind her pay-for-vote scheme and is pulling strings to defund Israel. So that's another source of contention here. There's lots of context, lots of moving parts. Luckily, we could pause and break things down. And what I want to point out here is the anti-Israel thing. All the Democrats right now are very, very anti-Israel. They're not the biggest fans of Jews right now, which is strange because Jews do typically tend to lean left-wing, and there's a lot of Jews in Hollywood and stuff too. But there are many conservative ones as well. We've got the Ben Shapiros and other ones out there too. But the point is, the current trend is anti-Israel in the Democratic Party. Most of the far leftists hate Israel. They say stuff like they want to wipe it off the map and stuff like that. We have literal quotes of far left YouTubers saying they want to wipe Israel off the map, but that's okay. They're allowed to bash countries they don't like. They're allowed to take out and say they want to wipe out this big Jewish state, like the main homeland for the Jews. And that's just what's showing their double standard. And it's showing Ilhan's connected to this. She is the opposing religion to the Jewish people. In addition, she has talked badly about Israel, which they really shouldn't. Israel is a great ally. The Jewish people are very strong, resilient, and very good Americans. There's a lot of great American Jews, and we support them and Israel and all those other people. We're an open, fair country who isn't about like having these religious battles.
The reason she's fighting for Palestine is because of this guy. So it's all about money and power, and they want her to defend Israel. Man.
For anyone who pays to vote, these are the laws. So they're going over some of the details in the laws that were probably, possibly broken. This one says, the federal laws 18 U.S.C. are quite clear. In the case of 18 U.S.C., it is punishable by up to 2 years in prison. And in the case of 52 U.S.C., it's punishable by up to $10,000 in fines and up to 5 years in prison. The Minnesota statute prohibits paying a person or receiving money to register to vote or to vote. This is a state felony punishable by more than 1 year imprisonment. So not necessarily the biggest punishments, but certainly something, certainly for just voting, you know, like taking someone's vote. You're not necessarily like destroying property or hurting someone or something physical, but it is significant and it is a way to corrupt the system. And, you know, these punishments need to be doled out. They need to show that the Democrats can't steal this. They need to stop them in their tracks and put a clamp down on this right away, because clearly the left is trying their bestest. They know they don't have a good chance this year of winning much of anything, so they have to cheat. That's why they push for mail-ins. That's why they're now buying votes and telling people they're translators when they're not. Ilhan Omar appears to be connected. Hopefully she gets her comeuppance, and hopefully people start waking up to this bad story. That about wraps things up. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed what you saw. Subscribe if you're new, and hit the bell for notifications too. Until next time, have a great day and a pleasant tomorrow.
Congratulations, Minnesota. Congratulations. Now, and what about Omar, where she gets caught harvesting? What the hell is going on? I hope your U.S. attorney is involved. What is going on with Omar? I've been reading these reports for 2 years about how corrupt and crooked she is. Let's get with it. Let's get with it.
We've got to keep the pressure on them. Think of the same shit that happened in 2018, okay? The same thing that happened in 2018. I was down here volunteering as a board worker. I asked the hard question. Why are these ballots getting cast where the vote has been moved to the Democrat candidate? They have been removed by security. Okay? Guys, we've got to keep the pressure up. They call me every name in the book. My face, see my mugshot. They had me falsely arrested, okay? Do not back down.
Americans are rising up against the massive Democrat voter fraud that's trying to steal this election. In this video, we're going to take a look at the demonstrations that are taking place at key election counting centers, how such demonstrations are turning up the heat on corrupt ballot counters and electors, and how the media is trying but failing to cover up this massive fraud. You are not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Would appreciate your smacking that bell and subscribe button, but I want to get right into this. First, let's give a huge shout out and a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, and that's our good friends over at Noble Gold. If you're sick of low returns and volatility from the market, then it really is time to look at gold and silver, and that's where our good friends over at Noble Gold come in. There's frankly never been a better time to start a gold or silver IRA in your portfolio, and the amazing staff over at Noble Gold are ready to help you in any way that they can. And if that's not incentive enough, they are offering this 1/10 ounce solid gold American Eagle proof coin with every qualifying IRA or 401k rollover going on through November. So don't wait. Click on that link below or visit their website at noblegoldinvestments.com or give them a call at 877-646-5347. Make sure to mention my name, Dr. Steve Turley, and let's ride that gold wave together. All right, so let's dive right in here. We are seeing Americans rising up to challenge head-on the blatant attempt by the Democrats and their willing accomplices in the mainstream Marxist media to steal an election that President Trump obviously won. Now, my last video that I did in the early morning hours of the election argued that Trump had basically won the re-election. He was coasting with about 295 electoral votes. He was leading by hundreds of thousands of votes in Wisconsin and Michigan. And it's huge in Pennsylvania. So we could all go to bed that night, rest easy, wake up in the morning, and watch conceding Joe Biden, all that good stuff. It was especially the case given the fact that he who wins Florida and Ohio has won 26 of the last 27 elections. And by the way, where Iowa goes, so goes Wisconsin and Michigan. Iowa went for Trump by 8 points. So obviously with the fundamentals working in his favor, Michigan and Wisconsin were going to go in his direction. He was winning the highest level of the minority vote of any Republican in recent memory. He was winning the suburbs, the exurbs. Suburban women did not defect from Trump as the media was promising that they would. Senior citizens were not defecting from Trump. We saw that particularly in Florida counties. Again, that's another gauge. In every election since the 1960s, where Florida trends either to the left or to the right, the Rust Belt trends as well. So these are all fixed historical precedents. And then we all wake up only to find that hundreds of thousands of votes mysteriously dropped out of the sky, virtually 100% of which are all for Biden. Suddenly, the over 90% of Wisconsin voter rolls show up at about 4 a.m., interestingly enough, when everyone's sleeping, 105% turnout in some districts, and all of a sudden, Sleepy Joe wins Wisconsin and Michigan. Literally, his lead comes out of nowhere. Moreover, we have Pennsylvania's Attorney General and their governor purposely obfuscating the vote process and the vote counting, all as Trump gained a historic lead in this state. So clearly, it is patently obvious that we are seeing voter fraud and election rigging on unprecedented levels, all inside Democrat states with Democrat governors. Michigan and Wisconsin both have Republican legislatures, as I believe. So I'm waiting for those legislatures to get involved here. If they don't, it's time for a third party. It's time to throw these guys out with Fox News. We're being told by the mainstream media that there's nothing to see here. There's no evidence of voter fraud at Lalise. All as videos of poll workers actually changing and tampering with votes are swarming the internet. Now, keep in mind, this is the same media that told us that Joe Biden was going to win by 20 points. He was going to turn Texas blue. He ended up getting the least amount of Texas counties of any Democrat presidential challenger ever. And that the Trump administration had colluded with Russia in order to win the 2016 election. That media expects us to believe them now about election rigging. We didn't believe them in their coverage of the 2020 election, obviously. They were totally repudiated by the results of this election, and yet they expect us to believe them now, believe them when they say there's no evidence of election rigging, when we can see it with our very own eyes on videos that are swarming the internet. All right, so all of this sets the stage for what we're seeing, particularly in Arizona, where hundreds of pro-Trump protesters have gathered at the Maricopa County Elections Department to voice their opposition to how the votes are being counted there without GOP oversight. Specifically, they want to see Republicans in place to oversee the process by which the ballots are being counted, which they're supposed to do. Such concerns are perfectly justified, not only in terms of what we're seeing in terms of the videos being circulated on the internet, but also in terms of an official report by committee chaired by Jimmy Carter, of all people, a 2005 bipartisan report authored by the Commission on Federal Election Reform, which concluded that absentee ballots and mail-in voting remain the single largest source of potential voter fraud in American elections. So this is not even supposed to be controversial, but it suddenly became controversial after the mainstream Marxist media and the Democrats together decided that 2020 would be won, or better, stolen, through a massive mail-in ballots effort pushed by big tech and professional sports, all in an effort to be able to basically steal the election for the Democrats. So as we're actually watching this play out, Americans are now rising up. Liberty-loving Americans are coming out and demanding that Republican officials be allowed to oversee the ballot counting process. And among the slogans that were being chanted, I think you'd be very interested in this one. Check this one out.
A lot of people in the crowd are not wearing masks. We're keeping a respectful distance, but a loud and very boisterous crowd. You'll start hearing them start up here. And they're actually chanting, "Fox News sucks." Fox News sucks. The reason why they're chanting that is because Fox News called Arizona for Biden yesterday, and a lot of people are angry about that. We have not called Arizona. A lot of other...
So as you can see, or I guess better hear, not only did Fox News cause irreparable harm to our nation in their impulsive calling of Arizona for Biden, keep in mind, Biden lost more counties in Texas than any previous Democrat presidential candidate in history, and Fox sat on it. They refrained from calling Texas for hours. Trump won Florida by 3.5% of the vote, and Fox sat on Florida for hours. But they call Arizona for Biden before a single vote is counted. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but the guy on Fox who called Arizona for Biden is a registered Democrat. Okay, so not only has Fox News caused irreparable harm to the nation, but they basically killed themselves in the process. They've alienated themselves from their very own loyal audience. Regardless, as this is going on in Maricopa County, there was also a Protect the Vote rally held at the Arizona State Capitol. Take a look at this.
Treated, pay your taxes, you work hard.
Shame on Fox News. You can't count 600 votes. Votes? Bullshit.
We need to go to the election process.
And this rising up is exactly what we need in Arizona, because President Trump is on track to win the state. The remaining ballots are coming in from deep red districts that promise to vote overwhelmingly for Trump, upwards of a margin that could be anywhere from 10 to 30,000 votes. Even Rachel Maddow is figuring that out over at MSNBC, who, by the way, again, and kudos to that reporter at the rally there, who would have ever imagined that we would see a day when the ultra-left MSNBC would be giving us a fairer and more insightful election coverage than Fox News. I mean, reality is stranger than fiction, is it not? So the Trump campaign expects to win Arizona by between 10 to 30,000 votes when all's said and done. And why it's taking so long, I have no flipping idea, outside, again, of attempts to rig and fraud. Now over in Detroit, protesters are starting to call out the shenanigans going on there. Check this video out.
Okay, in front of the polling center where they're counting the votes, where people are just dumping piles and piles of tablets on the top of the table, and a handful of people are looking through them. There's supposed to be 5 people there. There's not 5 people. Sometimes there's only 3 people. So when people are taking pictures of this, they're taking big, like, cardboard pieces of paper and holding them up so you can't see what's going on inside. It's complete chaos, but most importantly, they don't tell us how many GOP people are in there. They're only going by the register that people sign in this morning. Nobody was told to sign out when you leave. So it's
So they won't let any GOP people in because the GOP people were not told to sign out.
Exactly.
That's the scam.
This is not a fair election. This is a joke. This is bullying. This is intimidation. This is steal the election however you can. I'm tired. I hope you are
We have a Supreme Court order in our favor to allow us to observe. Do they not know this?
Now, I think this speaks for itself, does it not? Again, these kinds of eyewitness testimonies are being completely ignored and dismissed by the same mainstream media that told us Biden was going to win by 14 points and the Russian collusion hoax was real. Okay? They lied to us about the campaign. They lied to us about Russia. And now they're lying to us about the campaign's aftermath. That's all they do at this point. So the fantastic news is that whether it's in the form of mass protests at election departments, or whether it's simply forwarding videos of blatant vote tampering and flooding the internet with obvious evidence of election rigging for everyone to see, Americans are indeed rising up and challenging head-on this Democrat and media attempt at stealing this election. We're not going to let them do it. Now, before you go, make sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to my channel. And you will definitely want to check out my latest video. I just uploaded it on how the pollsters have been revealed as absolute frauds as the liberal media suffers a total meltdown over the Biden fallout. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure to click on the link, and I will see you over there. God bless.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. I hope you're getting through the day okay. Maybe you're celebrating some victory. Maybe you're mainlining copium like I am. But nonetheless, work calls. I actually was very thankful I have a day job still this morning so that I could just get away from things for a while and focus on actual work. And I hope that you're getting through okay. After all, remember, everything's going to be okay. I promise you. Now, last night, obviously, was the presidential election here in the United States. It will most likely run for the next month at this point, which is great news for mainstream media as they get to run this over and over and over and over and over and over and over again and essentially profiteer off millions of Americans' anxiety about the result. And meanwhile, today so far, we're seeing massive suppression and censorship by Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and the likes of really any information out there. Look, I'm not saying the mainstream media is always wrong, but I am saying they are always biased. And independent reporting on the streets is important. And independent content creation is also important. Last night, YouTube alternative BitChute found themselves deplatformed on the day of the election. What a coincidence. You see BitChute here saying it looks like we've been deplatformed on some critical infrastructure that has taken our site offline. We're trying to speak to people who find out more, saying on that. So far, we've received some very general account termination emails. They were able to, several hours later, get the service back up. There's some issues as a result. We'll let it go. Now, I've spoken with them. I want to pull up that conversation. And it looks like one of the web hosts switched them off on the day of the election. Think about that. Holy crap. Okay, please make sure you're subscribed on this channel, but also please support alt tech, whether it's BitChute or Library, which is now called Odyssey. Follow me on Parler. Follow me on Minds. This is insanity. They basically sent an email 5 minutes before shutting the entire website down on election day. One of the few places on the internet where you could get unfiltered information. Now, that information at times does include, inaccuracies and theories, of course. Those things exist on YouTube as well. But unlike YouTube, BitChute believes that some people can sift through that information and figure out exactly what's going on. And ultimately, they don't like that. They want to shut that all down. And it was only 5 minutes. Remember, they also sent a template terms violation email despite them never having any sort of interaction or previous infractions. They are holding back the name of this company as this is going to involve some litigation. But just think about that. Just an entire website which embraces free speech deleted off the internet on the day of the election. And that's just the beginning of it. Remember this too with BitChute. BitChute has already faced many problems with the Google Play Store and Apple iTunes with their BitSlide app. Having alt tech is increasingly being blocked from Google-controlled Android app. This is a few days ago. Google Play has booted the third-party app for BitChute, one of the most popular free speech YouTube alternatives, from its app store as part of their continuous crackdown on alt tech competitors. Even if you are a supporter of getting hate speech out of this campus, understand that eventually they'll come for you. The app had over 100,000 downloads before being removed, and Google cited its violation of, quote, web views and affiliate spam policy. The reason for taking it down. Specifically, Google claimed the app was in violation of rules because its primary purpose was to drive affiliate traffic to a website or provide a web view of a website without permission. Even though, of course, the app is done by and for BitChute. See, these people will find any slimy way to deplatform. This is, and like, regardless of how this election turns out, it's not looking good for the party that I would have had more faith in taking this. But look, whoever the next president is, they're our president, and they've got to deal with the big tech oligopoly. Of course, they won't, though, because it helps them. BitChute was founded in response to increased levels of censorship and monetization issues on Google-owned YouTube, and has proven to be a valuable platform for its creators. You can look at just the other day, they shared some user data, which was absolutely amazing. You see, where was this? By the way, I am, full disclosure, I am a financial supporter of BitChute on Subscribestar. You know, it sucks that alt tech has to start out with basically all the misfits. Whatever it was, I forget. Actually, I think they DM'd it to me quick. Sorry for the delay. I want to pull it up because it's insane. Okay, so here it is. In spite of all the dirty tricks, big tech interest in BitChute is at an all-time high. Look at this chart. Absolutely massive. All-time high Google Trends interest. And this is in the face of big tech censorship. You can see here, obviously, Tim Pool, the polls were wrong in 2016, again in 2020, 4 years of unhinged notice. But that's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about big tech censorship. You can see Tim Pool saying, this photo has been going around, but you all need to consider this is a reporting error from a news outlet or a general reporting error. And you see tweets about Arizona. You see Twitter is censoring my thread where I said both sides are going to contest the results. Hilarious. It's just an opinion, you censorious maniacs. And it's just, I mean, look at this. If we just look at, I mean, honestly, if Twitter had a reasonable trending topic, censorship would be trending. Dave Rubin, Twitter's full on censorship mode. I don't see any mainstream, quote, journalists picking up on this impossible result, nor the censorship. Has anyone at ABC, NBC, CNN, New York Times reported on this? It's literally impossible. You see this, Michigan, an update gives Biden 100% of new votes, 128,000, literally 100%. Of course, that can't possibly be true. I've been censored for talking about censorship. You couldn't make this up. Twitter censorship is about, Twitter is censorship this tweet about Michigan ballots, which means you should definitely read it. I mean, right in front of your eyes, this is what big tech is doing. I mean, it is absolute insanity. And we're watching it in real time. Breaking Twitter has censored President Trump on the night of the election. I mean, this is, I mean, look at 1 hour ago. Twitter is shutting down everything. You see 1 hour. They are finding Biden votes all over the place in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. So bad for our country. What's this all about? He tweets, but it's censored. You like can't even watch this. I mean, you can't even click it. This is reason enough to go to court. No honest person can look at this and say this is normal and unconcerning. But what I can't even get at it. And Twitter is just saying, oh, now it's deleted. Right before your eyes, you saw it go down the memory hole. This is insanity. The American people, and honestly, people all across this planet, deserve to see and be able to share their opinions. Right or wrong. If you're knowingly spreading misinformation, that may be one thing. But there's no way Twitter and Facebook and YouTube could possibly know this. Even if you look at my video about my dog yesterday, it got an information bracket below it. Look at this. Here's my video about my dog. Okay? Try to put out a happy little video, and you've got a box here. Results may not be final. Guaranteed this video will have it. Big tech, lockstep, keeping down anybody's opinions about anything right now. And people need to pay attention. Unfortunately, it looks like the people who don't care and who support this are now going to be in charge of this country for the next 4 years at minimum.
258 gets close.
Keep spreading, keep fighting the good fight. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.
Hello, how would you like to get a free ticket for a Holiday Inn? It's called a gulag. It's a workers' camp. All you gotta do is move bricks around all day. Ah, yes. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has threatened to purge conservatives and destroy and deplatform conservatives, right-wingers, and liberals who have supported Trump in the past. Here on Twitter with AOC. Is anyone archiving these Trump sycophants for when they try to downplay or deny their complicity in the future? I foresee decent probability of many deleted tweets, writings, photos in the future. Well, that didn't take long. The left is already talking about how it's going to plunge us into a nightmare where all conservatives are destroyed and purged by the Democrats. Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Obvious, and today on the internet, we're going to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and their nightmare plan for this republic. If you thought that Democrats and leftists were bad when Trump was president, imagine what they're going to do if and when Trump loses. If he does lose, and if Biden does win, and it's not over yet, Trump is certainly going to challenge the results. He's going to sue in these states. We're seeing a lot of potential evidence for fraud, impropriety, error, software errors. It's actually really, really bad. But if he does lose, this is the future. This is the 1984. This is what they're going to do. They're going to come for you. Now, if a right-winger were to say, we're going to get a list of all Democrats and people who voted for Biden, do you think that Twitter would leave it up? No, they would take it down. They would say, this is terror. This is voter suppression. You're banned. But when Democrats do it, it's fine because they support it. Now, we're going to talk all about this and more, folks, because I believe we're looking at a potential nightmare world. It's going to be bad. And we've got to talk about this, folks. We really do. Before we do, though, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And hit the bell button for notifications for more content. And if you like this video, please share it online and show other people, because this is the most important time in history for the United States of America. And we're at a turning point, folks. This is serious business. Now, AOC, I believe, is an extreme, very far left person. She represents the Democrats and the progressive faction of the left. She's basically what the modern left has become. They're very far left, they're very extreme, and what they call for is essentially to purge their political enemies. And this is scary. This is the 1984, folks. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, LOL at the party of personal responsibility, being upset of the idea of being responsible for their behavior over the last 4 years. What behavior is she talking about? Does she mean when Antifa, leftist activists, and BLM were burning down cities, hurting people, dragging Trump supporters out of cars? A Trump supporter was hunted down and murdered in one case. You're gonna put this on the conservatives? Are you absolutely insane? You delusional? These people are sociopaths. Like most politicians, let's be honest. These people are crazy. Now we're gonna go through this story, folks. I've got some disturbing tweets to show you. The things that these Democrats are saying are frightening, and they should scare you. They should scare you to your core. But before we get into this, a quick shout out. I currently have a brand new shirt design for my merch store. Have you ever wanted to be a Chad? Well, now you can. Introducing the Chad Classic t-shirt, impeccably designed with a magnificent Chad
I personally recommend getting the shirt in black, however, there's a lot to choose from. Get yours today by clicking on the link down below. Let's just hit the ground running. Here on the Post-Millennial, new blacklist of Trump sycophants inspired by AOC being compiled. Oh, isn't that wonderful? We're all gonna get thrown in the gulag. You looking forward to it? So here we have Jack Posobiec, who says, "Who could have seen this coming?" It shows AOC's tweet, as well as a reply, which I believe has been deleted. This tweet, though, is on record. Michael Simon, verified blue checkmark, says, "Yes, we are. The Trump Accountability Project. Every administration staffer, campaign staffer, bundler, lawyer who represented them, everyone." And then you can see the Trump Accountability Project, the TrumpRegistry.com. They are listing conservatives. And this isn't the only website. I've seen other websites of compiling a list of everyone who donated to Trump. What are these leftists planning? They're planning to come after conservatives. This is the future of America under Joe Biden. This is why I strongly believe that Trump needs to challenge all of this in the courts, because we see massive evidence of errors, of potential for fraud, and it absolutely disgusts me to my core. Things are getting really bad, folks. I'm still doing a ton of research. I'm looking into it, but I think it's worse than anybody thinks. This election is not secure, and the results are not reliable. But they're already planning to do this. They were always planning to do this. And it's not going to be liberals, it's not going to be leftists, and it's not going to be Democrats who are purged. No, no, no. Only Republicans, only conservatives, only libertarians like myself. They're going to ban us. They're going to deplatform us. Because if Joe Biden wins, say goodbye to free speech online. Say goodbye to any challenge of big tech, big media. Say goodbye to your rights. Say goodbye to the economy. Say goodbye to your jobs. It will literally destroy the United States. Welcome to communism. Democrats are the party of communism. They support communism. They're pushing communism. And this is the fall of Rome. Who do you think they're going to hurt? They're not going to hurt themselves, not at first. They're going to hurt everyone who is against them. So they're creating these lists, and they're planning to purge American citizens and voters. Martina Marketa replies, "Is this voter intimidation?" Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. They're saying that we're going to destroy us. They're going to put us in working camps. Look at the following screenshot. Matilda Williams says, "So realistically speaking, how do we get rid of all the racists, supremacists, militia, Trumpers, MAGA-tats, etc.? Re-education camps, like China deals with Uyghurs, I don't know the pronunciation, jail the leaders, shut down their access to all media? Seriously, how?" They literally just said that they want to put Trump supporters in concentration-like camps. That is what China does to religious minorities in China. Not only do I not believe that Democrats legitimately have a strong claim to this election, I believe they're sociopaths who need to be kept from power, especially if there's been fraud or impropriety or errors, which there looks to be a massive amount of evidence of.
Is here and don't want us to, and I can't take it. They won't let me. President Donald Trump, and not the only one we found in the trash. So,
I saw another report of an entire dumpster full of Navy veteran votes, a lot of them for Donald Trump, in the trash can. And I wish that was the least of it, folks. It's not. There is far, far more. Here on the Gateway Pundit, poll watcher in Michigan kicked out of Detroit Hall, but not before they obtained evidence of potential fraud. They kicked him out because he was watching the polls, but before he left, he got a picture. And if you look at the picture, it shows 7 out of 8 voters named on the screen. All of their birthdays? January 1st, 1900. No, not 1990. 1900. People who are dead. But they're talking about putting people in re-education camps. We all know what that means. You're going to the gulag. We would never do it to them, but they will do it to us. And I think that's what right-wingers, that's what liberals who don't support the left, I think that's what everyone should realize. They will do it to you. So it becomes a question, is America headed towards civil war? And what must we do to defend ourselves? I say, I will never, ever allow them to lay a finger on me. Now, JP has a really good comment here. He says, it starts with a list, but that becomes tiresome, so some kind of insignia can be used to identify them. Still hard to control, so if you can get all of them into one location, ... Sounds a lot like World War II, doesn't it? And they call the Republicans the bad men. Yeah, sure. This is the scary part, folks, is that they're not going to stop. People who think there will be no riots, who think that Antifa will just go away, they're naive. And anyone who voted for Joe Biden, I believe, is either absolutely deranged, Trump derangement syndrome, orange man bad, that kind of thing, or they are truly and utterly naive. They have no idea who the Democrats really are. And I believe that many of them will regret their decision. They're going to regret it when the jobs go, when the economy goes. Oh my God, they're going to regret it, and it's going to be their own fault. You get what you deserve. There's still a path to victory for Trump. If he challenges it in court, if he uncovers fraud, if he uncovers errors, and he gets it fixed, and he gets some recounts, if he wins that way, if he wins through the courts, we're going to see riots, we're going to see problems, but at least the American people will have somebody standing up for them as a shield against the corrupt elite, the swamp, big media, big tech. Trump is the only person protecting anybody. And that's what they don't realize. Maybe Trump could have done more. Maybe he could have. Maybe he wanted to. The Democrats always stood in his way and was always attacking him. But here's the thing. Without a shield, without Trump, we are fucked.